I'll never forget the sound of my brother's laugh coming from my bedroom that Wednesday afternoon. It was 2:47 p.m. I remember because I'd just checked my phone in the driveway, texting my assistant that I'd made it home early from Denver. The flight had been quick, and I figured I'd surprise Jessica. Maybe we'd grab an early dinner, reconnect a bit. I'd been traveling too much lately, 3 cities in 2 weeks. She'd mentioned feeling lonely in our last call. My Lexus was still running when I noticed Tyler's beat-up Honda Civic parked in front of our garage. The dent in the rear bumper caught the afternoon sun. That was odd. Tyler never visited midweek. Hell, Tyler barely visited at all unless there was free food involved. I grabbed my carry-on from the back seat and walked through the garage. The house smelled like Jessica's perfume, that expensive stuff she loved, the one that cost more per ounce than most people's car payments. But there was something else mixed in. Tyler's cologne, that cheap drugstore brand he'd worn since high school. The sound was coming from upstairs. At first I thought maybe they were moving furniture or something. Then I heard it clearly. That laugh. Tyler's laugh. The one he does when he thinks he's gotten away with something. My legs moved before my brain caught up the stairs, down the hallway, past the wedding photos we'd hung just last year. My hand was already on the bedroom door when some part of me knew, really knew, what I was about to see. I opened it anyway. They were in my bed. Our bed. The one Jessica and I had picked out together at that furniture store in Naperville. The one where she'd insisted on the expensive mattress because we spent a third of our lives sleeping Chris. The afternoon sunlight was streaming through the blinds we'd installed ourselves, casting stripes across their bodies. Tyler saw me first. And here's the thing that still gets me. He didn't look guilty. He looked defiant, like he'd been caught doing something he had every right to do. Jessica's face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Panic, then calculation, then something that looked almost like relief, like she'd been waiting for this moment. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't go for Tyler's throat, though every muscle in my body wanted to. Instead, I heard myself say, very calmly, "Get dressed. Get out of my house." Tyler opened his mouth to speak. "Not a word," I said. My voice sounded like it was coming from somewhere else. "Not one fucking word, Tyler." Jessica tried next. The tears started immediately. That was fast, I remember thinking. "Chris, please, I can explain." I walked away, just turned around and walked back downstairs to my home office. I could hear them scrambling around upstairs, whispering urgently. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set my phone down twice before I could call my assistant. "Something came up," I told her. "I need you to clear my schedule for the rest of the week." Through the window, I watched Tyler leave first. He didn't look back at the house, just got in his Civic and drove off like it was any other Wednesday. Jessica left 20 minutes later, her overnight bag slung over her shoulder. She'd packed. She'd actually taken the time to pack. If you've ever had that moment where everything you thought was solid just dissolves, you know there's this weird calm that comes first. The panic comes later. Right then, sitting in my office chair, I just felt cold, like someone had opened a freezer door in my chest. My phone rang 2 hours later. "Mom? Christopher?" Her voice had that tone, the one she used when she was about to tell me I'd disappointed her. "Your brother is very upset. He says you threatened him." I laughed, actually laughed. "I caught them in our bed, Mom." A pause, then, "Well, we need to talk about this as a family. Come to dinner Sunday, 6 o'clock. Don't be late." She hung up before I could respond. That's when the dread set in, because I knew what was coming. This wasn't going to be about what Tyler did. This was going to be about what I was going to do about it. Maybe you're thinking I should have fought him right there. Part of me wanted to. But something in my gut told me this was bigger than just catching them together. This was about something that had been building for a long time. Something I'd been too busy or too stupid or too loyal to see. I thought discovering them was the worst day of my life. I was wrong. The worst part was finding out that my own family had known it was coming, and they'd chosen their side long before I even knew there was a war. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how I got to that Wednesday afternoon, you need to know how I became the guy who had everything to lose. I was 14 the first time I worked at Hayes Auto Group, summer of 1999. My dad, Robert Hayes, owned a Chevrolet dealership in Naperville, Illinois. Nothing fancy, just a decent-sized lot with about 100 cars and a service bay that always smelled like motor oil and air freshener. Dad put me to work washing cars. $6 an hour, cash. I'd show up at 7 in the morning, and I wouldn't leave until every car on that lot was spotless. Tyler, who was 18 at the time, was supposed to work with me. He lasted 2 weeks. "This isn't for me, Dad," he'd said, handing back his work gloves like they'd personally offended him. I'm more of a people person. I can still see Dad's face when he said it. That mix of disappointment and resignation that I'd see 1,000 more times over the years. But all he said was, "That's okay, son. Christopher's got it covered." And I did. Every summer through high school. While Tyler was sleeping in or hanging out with his friends, I was detailing interiors and learning the inventory system. By the time I was 16, I could tell you the dealer cost, the sticker price, and the ideal selling price of every vehicle on the lot. Tyler went to community college, dropped out after a year, tried again 2 years later, dropped out again. Each time, Mom would say the same thing. "Your brother's finding himself? You've always been more settled." Settled. Like it was a personality trait instead of just showing up and doing the work. I went to University of Illinois, studied business, graduated with a 3.7 GPA, came right back to Naperville and went to work for Dad full time. I was 22 years old, and I had a plan. I was going to help Dad grow Hayes Auto into something bigger, something that would outlast both of us. Tyler was 26 and living in Mom and Dad's basement. The recession hit in 2015, and it hit us hard. Sales dropped 40% in 6 months. Dad was talking about closing down, cutting his losses, maybe retiring early. He was 61 and tired. That's when I made my pitch. "Let me try something," I told him. "Give me 2 years. If it doesn't work, I'll close up shop myself." What I did was simple. We shifted focus from new cars to certified pre-owned luxury vehicles. BMWs, Lexus, Mercedes, all barely used, all immaculate. I overhauled our inventory system, brought everything online, and expanded our service department to handle the high-end repairs these cars needed. I worked 70-hour weeks, 80-some months. I ate lunch at my desk and dinner in my car. I learned everything about the luxury used car market, what sold, what didn't, how to source vehicles from auctions, how to build relationships with the manufacturer reps who could get us the best inventory. 2 years later, Hayes Auto Group had 3 locations instead of 1. Revenue was up 40% from our pre-recession numbers. We weren't just surviving, we were thriving. Tyler showed up for family dinners, contributed nothing, collected his family consultant paycheck, $65,000 a year for showing up twice a week to shuffle papers and make suggestions nobody asked for. "We're so proud of both our boys," Mom would say, serving pot roast like Tyler and I had contributed equally to anything. If you've ever been the responsible kid in your family, the one who always cleaned up everyone else's messes, you know how it goes. They expect it from you because you've never let them down, and somehow that becomes the problem. You're too reliable, so you don't need the praise, the acknowledgement, the basic fucking recognition that you're carrying the weight while everyone else coasts. By the time I was 35, Hayes Auto Group was pulling in $45 million a year across 5 locations. My salary was $180,000 plus profit share. Modest, considering I was essentially running the whole operation, while Dad played golf and Tyler played whatever game he was pretending to work on that week. But I didn't mind. It was my legacy. Our legacy. The Hayes name meant something in the Illinois auto dealer community. I'd built that. Then I met Jessica. She walked into our main dealership on a Tuesday morning in March 7 years ago. She was applying for an HR coordinator position. Small-town girl from downstate Illinois. Business degree from a state school. Ambitious, but not cocky. During her interview, she impressed me with her questions. She didn't ask about salary first. She asked about company culture, growth potential, what we valued in employees. "I want to work somewhere that appreciates hard work," she'd said. "Not just talks about it, actually values it." I hired her on the spot. We didn't date right away. I made her wait 6 months before I asked her out. Wanted to keep things professional. But I'd noticed her. How could I not? She stayed late, came in early, actually gave a damn about doing the job right. She seemed different from other women who'd shown interest in me, women who lit up when they heard the Hayes name, who suddenly got very interested when they learned about the family business. Jessica seemed impressed by my work ethic, not my last name, or so I thought. Our first date was dinner at this Italian place in downtown Naperville. She told me about growing up in a town of 3,000 people, how her dad had worked at a factory for 30 years before it closed down, how her mom had worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat. She wanted more than that for herself. She wanted security, stability, a life where she wasn't one paycheck away from disaster. I respected that. I understood it. By our second date, I was falling for her. By our 10th, I was in love. We got married when I was 33. Small wedding, 35 grand, which I paid for myself despite Dad's offer to help. I wanted to do it on my own. Jessica cried during the vows, and I remember thinking, this is what it's supposed to feel like. This is real. Tyler was my best man. Dad insisted. He's your brother, Christopher. It's tradition. I remember Tyler making a toast at the reception. Something about how lucky I was, how Jessica was way out of my league, how he hoped I knew what I had. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. Looking back now, I wonder if he was already planning it then. If he saw her not as my wife, but as something he wanted. The first 2 years of marriage were good, great even. We bought a house, a 4-bedroom colonial in a nice subdivision with an HOA that kept everything pristine. $750,000. I put down 20%, got a great rate through our business banker. Jessica quit her job at the dealership about a year into our marriage. I want to focus on being a wife, she'd said. Building our home, maybe thinking about kids soon. I supported it. I was making good money. We didn't need 2 incomes, and honestly, part of me liked the idea of coming home to someone who was there, who'd made dinner, who wasn't as exhausted as I was from the daily grind. But then Jessica started spending a lot of time with my mother. Lunch dates, shopping trips, girls' days where they'd disappear for hours. I thought it was sweet that they were bonding, that Jessica was becoming part of the family in a real way. She also started getting interested in the business, specifically in family business planning. She'd sit in on meetings with Dad about succession and estate planning. She'd ask questions about how the dealership would be passed down, what the timeline looked like, how these things typically worked. I just want to understand, she'd say when I asked why she cared so much. It's our future too, Chris, our kids' future. We didn't have kids yet, but I figured she was planning ahead, being smart about our financial future. That's what partners do, right? Dad started talking about retirement seriously when he hit 66. Mom was 64, and they were both ready to travel, to finally enjoy the money they'd spent 40 years building. The dealership was worth somewhere between $15 and $18 million, depending on how you valued it. We'll split things fairly between you boys, Dad said one Sunday dinner. Fairly, I assume that meant based on contribution, based on who'd actually built the business into what it was. But Dad never clarified, and I never pushed, because pushing felt greedy. Asking felt like I didn't trust him to do the right thing. You ever build something from nothing, and then watch someone who did zero work act like they deserve an equal share? That's what the last 10 years felt like. But I told myself, it didn't matter. Blood was blood. Tyler was my brother. We'd figure it out. Around that time, Jessica started suggesting Tyler should get a real role at the dealership. He's your brother, Chris, she'd say. You should include him more. Give him actual responsibility. I pushed back. Tyler had proven for 20 years that he wasn't reliable. Giving him real authority would be a disaster. Jessica got upset. He's family. You're being cold. It was our first real fight. She didn't talk to me for 2 days. Looking back now, I can see it. The pieces were already in motion. Tyler suddenly showing up at family dinners more often. Jessica texting more. Phone always face down on the counter. Tyler stopping by our house when I was traveling. Just checking on Jess, he'd say. You travel so much, bro. I want to make sure she's okay. 3 months before that Wednesday, I noticed Jessica had new jewelry, expensive stuff. When I asked where it came from, she said she'd bought it herself. I deserve nice things too, Chris. You're not the only one who works hard. 1 month before, Dad mentioned updating his will. He wanted a family meeting to discuss the estate plan. Jessica was very interested in the timing. She asked me about it every other day. When's the meeting? What's he going to say? Do you think he'll announce it at Sunday dinner? I was too busy to notice what it all meant. Q3 was our biggest quarter, and we were expanding again, looking at a sixth location near Joliet. I was in meetings with bankers, with commercial real estate agents, with manufacturer reps. The business was my focus. I trusted my wife. I trusted my brother. I thought I was building a legacy. Turns out, I was just building a target on my back, and the two people I trusted most were already lining up the shot. Sunday dinner was at 6 p.m., exactly as Mom had ordered. I drove over from the Marriott by the highway where I'd been staying. Couldn't go home. Jessica was still there, and I couldn't stand to be in that house. Couldn't stand to smell her perfume, or see that bed, or walk past the bathroom where she'd gotten ready for Tyler, God knows how many times. The Marriott had thin walls and a view of the interstate, but at least it was mine. At least when I lay down at night, I knew I was the only person who'd been in that bed. I pulled up to my parents' house at 5:58 p.m. Tyler's Civic was already there, parked in his usual spot, like this was any other Sunday. Through the dining room window, I could see them. Dad at the head of the table, Mom to his right, Tyler across from where I always sat. They were talking, drinks already in their hands. 3 glasses on the table meant they had been at it for a while. This was an ambush. I knew it the second I walked through the door. "Christopher," Mom said, not honey, not sweetheart. Just my full name, crisp and cold, like she was addressing an employee who disappointed her. "Sit down." I sat, said nothing, just waited. Tyler couldn't even look at me. That told me everything. In 24 years of screwing up, Tyler had always looked me in the eye when he apologized. When he wrecked my car in high school, looked me in the eye. When he borrowed $2,000 from my savings account when we were in college, looked me in the eye. But now he stared at his glass like it held the secrets of the universe. Dad cleared his throat. "Son, we need to talk about what happened Wednesday." "I'm listening," I said. "Tyler told us his version of events," Dad continued. He was using his dealership voice, the calm, reasonable tone he used when he was about to talk someone into a deal they didn't want. "He says he came over to drop off some papers for me. Jessica was upset about something. They were just talking and things got out of hand. It was a mistake. A mistake, like he'd spilled coffee on my carpet or forgotten to return a phone call. A mistake," I repeated. "Yes." Mom jumped in, her voice sharp. "We've all made mistakes, Christopher. Marriage is hard. Relationships are complicated. These things happen." My phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. "I'm so sorry, Chris. Can we talk?" Mom gestured to the phone. "That's Jessica. We thought she should be part of this conversation." Before I could respond, she hit the speakerphone button. Jessica's voice filled the room, small and trembling. "Chris, I'm so sorry. I was confused. You're always traveling, always working, and I felt so alone. Tyler was there, and he listened, and I made a terrible mistake. But I love you. We can work through this. The script was obvious. They'd rehearsed this. All of them." "You felt alone," I said slowly. "So you fucked my brother in our bed." "Christopher!" Mom's voice cracked like a whip. "Language. What would you prefer I call it, Mom? Making love? That better?" Dad leaned forward. "Son, this kind of talk isn't productive. We're here to find a solution, not assign blame." "A solution," I said. "What kind of solution did you have in mind?" They exchanged glances. Here it comes, I thought. "Families work through things," Dad said. "We don't air dirty laundry. We don't let mistakes destroy what we've built." "What you've built," I corrected. I wasn't aware Jessica and I were part of the Hayes Auto Group mission statement. "Don't be smart," Mom snapped. "You know what he means. This family has a reputation in this community. People talk. People judge. If you make a scene, if you divorce her publicly, everyone will know. It will affect the business." There it was. The business. My business. The one I'd spent 18 years building, sacrificing for, pouring my life into. They were using it as leverage, as a weapon against me. Tyler finally spoke. "Bro, I feel terrible. I really do. But we're blood. We're brothers. You can find another woman, but you can't replace family." The room went quiet. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my response to that particular grenade. "Is that what you all think?" I asked quietly. "That wives are replaceable, but brothers aren't?" No one answered. That was answer enough. Dad pushed forward. "We're updating the estate plan next month. I need to know my sons can work together. The business needs stability for the transition. I need to know you can be professional about this, Christopher, that you can put the family first. By forgiving them, I said. By moving forward, Dad corrected. I looked at each of them. At Dad, who'd watched me work myself into the ground for his business and was now asking me to swallow my pride for it. At Mom, who'd always loved Tyler more, or at least loved him more openly, more forgivingly. At Tyler, who still couldn't meet my eyes. Jessica's voice came through the speaker. Chris, please. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. We can make this work. Don't throw away 7 years of marriage. 7 years. She said it like it was a long time. Like it meant something that couldn't be broken by one Wednesday afternoon. If you've ever been in a room where everyone's acting like you're the crazy one, that dinner, sitting there while they all looked at me like I was the problem, that's when I knew I had to get out. But I didn't say that. Not yet. I just nodded slowly and said, I need to think about it. The relief in the room was immediate. They thought they'd won. Mom actually smiled. Take your time, Dad said, already pouring himself another bourbon. Just not too much time. We need to move forward on the estate plan. I left without saying goodbye. Walked out to my Lexus, got in, and sat in their driveway for 10 minutes with my hands on the steering wheel. My phone was buzzing. Tyler, Jessica, Mom, even Dad. Everyone wanted to know if I was okay, if I understood, if I was going to do the right thing. I drove back to the Marriott and sat on the bed with a notepad from the desk drawer. I'm not a crier, never have been, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the pen. I drew a line down the middle of the page. Left column, if I stay and fight. If I divorce Jessica, it would be messy. Illinois is a no-fault state, which means her cheating doesn't matter for property division. She'd get half of everything, the house, the savings, the investments, probably $475,000, half of what we'd built, most of it from my earnings. If I fought for my place in the family business, I'd be battling Tyler for the rest of Dad's life. And Dad would resent me for it. Mom would make me the villain, the son who couldn't forgive, who put money over family. They'd freeze me out gradually, give Tyler more responsibility, eventually push me into a corner where I'd either quit or be miserable forever. Years of legal battles, years of family drama, years of being painted as the bad guy in my own story. Right column, if I walk away, I'd lose the business, lose the inheritance, or most of it, lose my identity as the Hayes kid, the dealership guy, the son who did everything right. Lose my family, or the illusion of family I'd been clinging to, but I'd keep my sanity, my dignity, my self-respect, and I'd be free. I stared at those two columns for an hour, and then I thought, what if walking away is the strategy, not the surrender? What if I'd let them have the business? Without me, could they even run it? Tyler couldn't manage a lemonade stand, and Dad was 66 years old and checked out. How long would Hayes Auto last without the person who'd actually been running it for the past decade? What if I took what was legally mine right now, protected it, secured it, and disappeared? Let them think they'd won. Let them celebrate their victory, and then watch from a distance as they realized what they'd lost. Maybe you've been in a situation where the right choice and the smart choice aren't the same thing. Walking away felt wrong, but staying would have destroyed me. I spent the next 3 weeks building my exit plan. Late nights at the office, after everyone else had gone home, I pulled reports, backed up files, documented everything. Every supplier relationship, every manufacturer contact, every banking relationship, all of it tied to me personally. Not to Hayes Auto Group, to me, Christopher Hayes, the guy who answered the phones at 2 a.m. when a shipment got delayed. The guy who flew to Detroit every quarter to maintain relationships with the manufacturer reps. The guy who knew every employee's name and their kids' names and which ones were flight risks. I met with an attorney in the next town over, not our family lawyer, someone who didn't know the Hayes name, didn't care about our reputation. Illinois is an equitable distribution state, he explained. Adultery doesn't factor into property division, but we can protect your premarital assets, your 401k, anything that's separate property. What about the business? I asked. Are you an owner or an employee? Employee. My father owns it. Then your expected inheritance is just that. An expectation, not a guarantee. If you're not vested, if there's no formal ownership transfer, you have no legal claim to it. That hit me harder than I expected. 18 years, and I'd never asked for equity. Never demanded ownership. Just trusted that Dad would do right by me eventually. Trust. What a stupid, reckless thing. I reviewed our joint finances. $750,000 in savings and investments, 90% of it from my income. The house had $200,000 in equity after the mortgage. My 401k had $380,000, all separate property in Illinois. If I offered Jessica a quick, clean split, half of everything, no contest, no fighting, I could walk away with about $600,000 liquid, plus my 401k. Close to $1 million total. Not the millions I would have gotten from Dad's estate, but enough. Enough to start over. Enough to disappear. I opened a new bank account at a different bank. Started redirecting my direct deposit. Moved all my personal documents, birth certificate, passport, college diplomas, to a safe deposit box. Backed up 18 years of work files to an external hard drive. Took photos of everything in our house that I'd paid for, including Jessica's jewelry collection. Then I wrote 2 letters. The first was my resignation from Hayes Auto Group, effective immediately. The second was to my attorney. Initiate divorce proceedings. Offer Jessica a clean 50-50 split of all marital assets. No contest. Make it quick and quiet. The following Sunday, I went to dinner at my parents' house one last time. They were expecting me to announce I was working on forgiveness. I could see it in their faces when I walked in. The relief, the satisfaction. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd put the stubborn son back in his place. I let them think it through the appetizers, through Mom's pot roast, through dessert. Then I stood up. "I've thought about what you all said," I started. "You're right. Family is important." They relaxed. Mom even smiled. "So I'm going to make this easy for everyone. I'm resigning from Hayes Auto Group, effective tomorrow." The smiles disappeared. "What?" Dad stood up. "Christopher, don't be rash." "I'm not being rash, Dad. I'm being smart. Jessica, my attorney will contact you tomorrow. I'm offering you half of our marital assets, clean split, no contest. The divorce will be quick and quiet, exactly like you all want. No scandal, no publicity, no damage to the Hayes family name." "Son," Dad tried again. "I'm done," I said. "I'm done carrying Tyler. I'm done pretending we're a real family when you've made it very clear where I rank. I'm done building something for people who don't value what I bring to it." Tyler stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Chris, man, you're making a huge mistake. Where are you even going to go? What are you going to do?" I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since that Wednesday. "Anywhere but here," I said. "Anything but this." I walked out. Tyler followed me into the driveway. "Chris, come on. You're throwing away everything. The business, the money, the family." "No, Tyler," I said, unlocking my car. "You threw it away. I'm just cleaning up the mess, like I always do." "You'll regret this," he called after me. I got in the Lexus, looked at him through the window. "No, Tyler, you made the mistake. I'm just done paying for it." I drove away and didn't look back. That was the last time I saw any of them for over 2 years. I left with nothing but my dignity and about $600,000 to my name. They thought I was giving up. What they didn't know was I was about to build something they could never touch, and they'd never see me coming. 3 months later, I was driving south on I-57 with everything I owned in my Lexus GX, 2 suitcases of clothes, a laptop, an external hard drive with 18 years of work files I'd never look at again. A framed photo of my grandparents, the only family photo I took with me, and my wedding ring, which I'd left on the dresser of that Marriott room before I checked out for the last time. I chose Nashville, Tennessee, far enough from Illinois that I'd never accidentally run into anyone I knew. Close enough to drive if I needed to, though I couldn't imagine why I'd ever need to. Tennessee had no state income tax, a booming economy, and a culture that valued people who worked hard and minded their own business. I'd never lived anywhere but Illinois in my 40 years. Never really thought about it. But driving across the Kentucky border into Tennessee that day in late fall, watching the landscape change from flat farmland to rolling hills, I felt something shift in my chest, like I could breathe a little deeper. I rented a furnished apartment in Franklin, a suburb about 20 miles south of Nashville. Upscale area, good schools, the kind of place where everyone drove nice cars and no one asked too many questions about where you came from. My apartment was generic but clean. Beige walls, rental furniture, a balcony overlooking a parking lot. It was perfect because it was temporary, because it wasn't home, and I didn't want home. Home was a trap. The first few weeks were disorienting. I'd wake up and forget where I was. Reach for my phone to check the dealership inventory, then remember I didn't work there anymore. Make coffee and wait for Jessica to walk into the kitchen, then remember she wasn't coming, that she was never coming. I established a routine. Coffee at the pancake pantry downtown, not Starbucks. I was done with chains. I wanted local, wanted to learn this place from the ground up. The waitress learned my order after 3 visits. Black coffee, wheat toast, scrambled eggs. She never asked my name, never pried, just called me Han and kept the coffee coming. I worked from my laptop at a coffee shop called Frothy Monkey most days. At first I thought maybe I'd consult for auto dealers. I had the expertise, the connections. But every time I opened a window to draft a consulting proposal, my stomach turned. I didn't want anything to do with cars anymore. Didn't want to smell that new car smell. Didn't want to negotiate with manufacturers. Didn't want to do the thing that had defined me for 2 decades. That Christopher was dead. I needed to figure out who this Christopher was. So, I thought about what I'd actually enjoyed about running Hayes Auto. Not the cars, the systems. The way I'd rebuilt the inventory management from scratch. The customer retention software I'd implemented. The scheduling system for the service department that reduced wait times by 40%. I liked solving operational problems. I liked building things that worked better than they had before. Nashville was full of small businesses. Music studios, healthcare startups, boutique hotels, restaurant groups, all of them needed better systems, better operations, better technology to manage growth. Light bulb moment. I could build software for them, not generic software that tried to do everything. Specific software for multi-location businesses with complex inventory and service scheduling. The kind of pain points I'd lived with for years, the problems I'd already solved once. I spent $150,000 of my savings hiring freelance developers. I managed the project, wrote the specifications, designed the workflows, built something I called SyncPoint Operations, cloud-based business management for growing companies. It took 5 months to build a working beta. I reached out to small businesses in Nashville, offered free trials in exchange for feedback, barbershops, boutiques, HVAC companies, auto repair shops, anyone who'd listen. One of those businesses was a smoothie franchise owned by a guy named Marcus Webb. I met Marcus at a Nashville entrepreneur meetup I'd forced myself to attend. Networking felt impossible. I'd spent 2 decades networking with people who knew my family, who gave me meetings because of the Hayes name. Now, I was nobody, just some guy from out of town with a startup idea. Marcus was in his 40s, black guy with an easy smile and a firm handshake. He owned 3 Smoothie King franchises across Nashville and was about to open a 4th. We got to talking about inventory management. His biggest headache was tracking fruit supplies across multiple locations, minimizing waste, coordinating deliveries. I built something that might help, I said. Can I show you? We met the next day at his flagship location. I walked him through SyncPoint, showed him how it could track inventory in real time across all his stores, predict demand based on historical sales, automate reordering. His eyes lit up. This is exactly what I need. How much? Free for 6 months, I said. You give me feedback. Let me use you as a case study if it works. Marcus agreed, and it worked. Within 3 months, his inventory waste was down 30%. Employee scheduling conflicts were down 60%. He referred 3 other franchise owners to me. Marcus also became my first real friend in Nashville. We started hitting the gym together on Saturday mornings. He didn't pry into my past, just accepted that I was going through some stuff and gave me space. But he was there, steady, the kind of friend I'd never really had back in Illinois, where every relationship was somehow tied to the business or the family. You ever gonna tell me what really happened in Illinois? He asked one morning after we'd been working out together for about 3 months. Someday, I said, benching 225, my arms shaking. Just not ready yet. Fair enough, Marcus said, spotting me. But you know you're going to have to deal with it eventually, right? Can't run forever. I know. But I wasn't running. I was rebuilding. There's a difference. Through Marcus, I met Ray and Donna Patterson. They owned Patterson's Hardware, a family business since 1987 with 3 locations across Tennessee. Old school operation, the kind of place where everyone knew your name and they'd special order that weird part you needed for your 1973 lawnmower. Ray was late 60s, silver-haired, the kind of guy who wore flannel shirts year-round and had hands like leather from 40 years of manual labor. Donna was mid-60s, sharp as a tack, ran the business side, while Ray handled operations and customer relationships. They were struggling post-pandemic, supply chain chaos, staffing nightmares, their old software systems held together with duct tape and prayers. Marcus says you built something that might help us, Ray said when we first met at their flagship store downtown. I spent 3 weeks embedded with their team, built custom features specifically for hardware retail, managing thousands of SKUs, coordinating deliveries from hundreds of suppliers, tracking special orders. The day we went live with SyncPoint across all 3 Patterson locations, Ray pulled me aside in his office. "Son," he said, and something in my chest cracked a little because my own father hadn't called me son like that in years, like he was proud, like he meant it. "You're one of us now. You ever need anything, you call, understand?" I nodded because I didn't trust myself to speak. I cried in my car in the Patterson's Hardware parking lot that afternoon. First time I'd cried since leaving Illinois. Just sat there with my forehead on the steering wheel, sobbing like a kid, because an old man I'd known for 3 weeks had made me feel more like family than my actual family had in 20 years. If you've ever started over somewhere new, you know that first few months where nobody knows your story? It's terrifying and liberating at the same time. You can be whoever you want to be. No expectations, no history, no Christopher Hayes, the dealership guy. Just Chris. Just some guy working hard, trying to build something, being genuine because there's no other option. Sunday dinners at the Pattersons became a regular thing. Donna made the best peach cobbler I'd ever tasted, and I told her so, which made her blush and swat at me with a dish towel. Ray told stories about the hardware business in the old days, before Home Depot and Lowe's, when being a hardware store owner meant you knew every contractor in town by name. There was a comfortable silence at their dinner table that I'd never experienced growing up. No tension, no unspoken resentments, no Tyler getting passes for screwing up, while I got lectures for not screwing up perfectly enough. Just people who liked each other, eating food, grateful to be together. "You got family back in Illinois?" Donna asked me once, passing the green beans. "Not anymore," I said. She nodded like that was all the answer she needed. "Well, you got us now." By the end of my first year in Nashville, SyncPoint had 12 paying clients and was bringing in about $15,000 a month, enough to cover my living expenses and then some. Not rich, but sustainable. And the work was good, actually solving problems, helping real people, not just moving metal boxes for profit margins. But late at night, alone in my apartment, I'd catch myself wondering about Illinois, about Hayes Auto, about whether they were managing without me. One night, I gave in and Googled Hayes Auto Group Illinois. The reviews told me everything. Recent spike in negative feedback. Used to be a great dealership. Service has really gone downhill. Tried to reach the manager about a warranty issue. No one ever called back. Sales guys seemed confused about the inventory. Whole experience was disorganized. I scrolled through their online inventory. Fewer cars on the lot than there used to be. The photos were poorly lit. Descriptions were minimal. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt sad. That was my work, my legacy, crumbling because Tyler couldn't manage a checklist and Dad was too stubborn to admit he'd made a mistake. But mostly I felt relief. Relief that I'd gotten out, that I wasn't there watching it die slowly, trying to hold it together while Tyler got credit and Mom made excuses. I closed the browser and didn't look again. Maybe you've met people who felt more like family than your actual family ever did. That's what Nashville gave me. Folks who liked me for who I was, not what I could do for them. Not what I could build for them. Just me. Chris. The guy who showed up, who did good work, who laughed at Ray's terrible hardware puns and helped Donna set up her new phone and went to Marcus's kids' soccer games. I was healing, slowly, like a bone that had been broken and set wrong, finally being rebroken and set right. But there was still one piece missing. One thing I hadn't let myself even think about. Dating. Love. Trusting someone again. Marcus's wife Lisa kept trying to set me up. "I have the perfect friend for you," she'd say every few months. "I'm not ready," I'd tell her. "When will you be ready?" "I'll know when I know." What I didn't say was, maybe never. Maybe I'd used up my chance at trust when I gave it to Jessica. Maybe some things, once broken, stay broken. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone, that I'd used up my chance at trust when I gave it to Jessica. But then, on a random Tuesday at Patterson's Hardware, I met someone who changed everything, and her name was Emily. It was a Tuesday morning, about 18 months after I'd moved to Nashville. I was at the downtown Patterson's location, demoing a new inventory feature for Ray. Something about integrating their point-of-sale system with their ordering system, so reorders would trigger automatically when stock hit certain thresholds. The door chimed. I heard Ray's face light up before I heard the voice. "Dad, I've got those invoices you—" She stopped mid-sentence. I turned around. Late 30s, brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, professional but approachable, dark jeans, blazer, leather messenger bag over her shoulder. She had her father's eyes, that same warm directness. "Em," Ray called out. "This is Chris, the tech wizard I told you about." She crossed the store, hand extended. "So you're the guy who fixed Dad's nightmare spreadsheets." Her handshake was firm, her eye contact direct, and her smile, it reached her eyes. Genuine, not performative. Nothing like Jessica, who'd always been on, always calculating angles. Emily Patterson seemed comfortable in her own skin in a way that immediately made me nervous, because I wasn't sure I'd ever felt comfortable in mine. "The spreadsheets weren't that bad," I said. "Liar," Ray laughed. "They were 60 tabs of chaos." Emily pulled up a stool next to where I was working. "So, what are you building now?" Smart questions. Really smart. She understood the logic behind the system, asked about edge cases, pointed out a potential workflow issue I hadn't considered. Turned out she worked in nonprofit management in Memphis, homelessness prevention programs, and had dealt with her share of database nightmares. "You visiting from Memphis?" I asked. "Yeah, helping Dad with some business planning, making the trip more often these days." She smiled at Ray. "Parents are getting older, want to make sure they've got things handled." The way she talked to her father, it was respectful, affectionate, no manipulation, no angles, just a daughter who loved her dad and wanted to help. Something cracked in my chest, not breaking, opening. A week later, I was at Frothy Monkey working on my laptop when someone tapped my shoulder. "Emily, mind if I join? I've got an hour before I head back to Memphis." We talked, carefully, politely. The kind of first real conversation that's all about feeling out boundaries. She mentioned visiting Nashville more often. I mentioned I was from Illinois originally, but had moved here about a year and a half ago. "What brought you to Nashville?" she asked. "Needed a fresh start," I said. She nodded. Didn't pry. That alone made me like her more. Jessica used to pry, used to dig until she'd excavated every piece of information she could use later. 2 weeks later, I was training Patterson's staff on the new sync point features. Emily was there again, helping with inventory planning. We worked side by side for most of the afternoon. She caught a data error in one of my reports. "Not trying to backseat drive, but this supplier code is wrong. Should be PLU 447, not PLU 474. She was right. I'd transposed the numbers. I laughed. Actual surprise laugh. Because it had been years since I'd felt comfortable being wrong around someone. "You should consult for me," I joked. "Maybe I will," she said, smiling. The Sunday dinner invitation started, including Emily when she was in town. Her and her son, Jackson, 9 years old, obsessed with Minecraft, sharp as hell. Over pot roast one evening, I learned Emily had been divorced for 3 years. "Amicable split," she explained when someone asked. "We just grew into different people. No cheating, no drama. We're better as friends and co-parents than we ever were as spouses." I appreciated that. The honesty, the lack of bitterness, the maturity to recognize when something wasn't working and walk away without burning everything down. Jackson was a good kid, polite without being performative, funny, curious. He asked me questions about my work, actually listened to the answers, reminded me of myself at that age, eager to understand how things worked. 3 weeks later, Emily texted me. I know a great spot for live music if you're free Saturday. My first date in 8 years. I was terrified. She picked me up, role reversal I appreciated, and drove us to the Bluebird Cafe, tiny venue, famous for discovering Taylor Swift and 100 other songwriters. Intimate, acoustic, the kind of place where you could hear every breath the performer took. Between sets, we actually talked, not small talk, real conversation. My marriage ended because we grew into different people, Emily said, picking at her dessert. We met in college, got married at 25, had Jackson at 28. By 35, we realized we'd changed into people who didn't fit anymore. No one's fault, just life. No cheating? I asked. No, he's a good man, still is. We co-parent really well. We're better at that than we ever were at being married. I told her, not everything, but enough. About the cheating, about the family betrayal, about walking away from the business and the inheritance and the whole life I'd built. She listened, didn't interrupt, didn't offer hollow platitudes. When I finished, she just reached across the table and touched my hand briefly. That must have been impossibly hard. The hardest part, I said, was thinking I'd never trust anyone again. And now? I looked at her. At this woman I barely knew who'd driven me to a music venue and listened to my story without judgment. You make me want to try. At the end of the night, she walked me to my apartment door. That awkward moment where you both know what comes next, but no one wants to make the first move. I kissed her, gentle, brief, testing. She smiled. I was hoping you would. Can I see you again? I'd like that. We took it slow. Both of us had been burned. Both of us had kids, hers real, mine metaphorical. We had baggage, we had scar tissue. But over the next few months, we built something. Not rushed, not intense, just steady. Emily drove up from Memphis twice a month. We'd do normal things, dinner, movies, walks around Percy Warner Park, Sunday dinners with her parents. Jackson started warming up to me. We'd play Fortnite on his Xbox, and he'd patiently teach me how to not die immediately every round. You're terrible at this, he'd say, laughing. I really am, I'd agree. But he kept playing with me anyway. 4 months into dating, Emily said it. We were at my apartment, late at night. Comfortable silence between us. You know I'm falling for you, right? My chest tightened. I'm falling for you too. That scares me. Because of what happened in Illinois? I nodded. Chris, she shifted to face me fully. I can't promise I won't hurt you. No one can promise that. People are complicated and messy, and sometimes we screw up even when we're trying our best. But I can promise I'll be honest with you. I won't lie. I won't cheat. If I'm unhappy, I'll tell you. If something's wrong, we'll talk about it. That's all I can offer. It was the most grounded, realistic thing anyone had ever said to me about love. That's enough, I said. 6 months in, Emily met Marcus and Lisa. They adored her. Man, Marcus said privately while Emily was in the bathroom, she's the real deal. Don't screw this up. I'm trying not to, I said. Trying's good. Keep trying. I met Emily's ex-husband when he dropped Jackson off one Saturday. Nice guy. They had easy co-parenting dynamic, quick handoff, friendly small talk, coordinated schedules without drama. Watching them, I felt a pang of, what? Jealousy? No, something else. They had history, a child together, a shared past that didn't include me. Emily noticed me quiet after he left. Hey, what's wrong? Do you ever miss him, your ex? She considered the question. Miss the marriage? No, we're better as friends. But I'm grateful for what we had because it gave me Jackson. Why? Just, you two seem to work well together. We work well as parents. That's different than being partners. She moved closer. Chris, you're who I choose. Every day I choose you. Understand? If you've been hurt before, you know that letting someone new in feels like diffusing a bomb. Every step, you're waiting for it to blow up in your face. Emily was patient with me in ways I didn't deserve. When I'd pull back, she'd give me space but not let me disappear. When I'd share something difficult, she'd listen without trying to fix it. Maybe you've met someone who made you believe in good people again. That's what Emily did. She didn't fix me, but She made me want to be whole. A year into our relationship, I realized I was happy, not distracted from pain, happy, actually happy. I'd wake up excited to see her. I'd catch myself smiling for no reason. I'd think about the future, our future, without fear. Jackson started calling me Chris instead of Mr. Hayes. Small step, but it mattered. Sync Point was growing. 50 clients now. 2 full-time employees, revenue hitting $30,000 a month. Marcus's businesses were thriving. Ray and Donna were talking about finally retiring, maybe letting me help find a buyer for Patterson's hardware. I'd found a rhythm, a life, a version of myself I actually liked. I thought I'd finally moved on. Nashville was home, Emily was my future, and Illinois was ancient history. Then one morning, my phone rang with an Illinois area code, and everything I'd left behind came roaring back. The call came at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was making coffee in my apartment, watching the sunrise through my balcony window. Unknown Illinois number. I usually ignored these, assumed it was someone trying to reach Christopher Hayes, the dealership guy, not knowing he didn't exist anymore. But something made me answer. Is this Christopher Hayes? Who's asking? This is Detective Sarah Morrison, Naperville Police Department. I'm calling about your father, Robert Hayes. The coffee mug in my hand suddenly felt very heavy. What about him? I'm very sorry to inform you that your father passed away 3 days ago. Heart attack. It was sudden. We found your contact information in his desk at Hayes Auto Group. I apologize for the impersonal delivery. Your family has been difficult to reach. 3 days. He'd been gone for 3 days, and no one had called me. When's the funeral? I heard myself ask. Day after tomorrow, Thursday, 2 p.m. at Beidelman Kunsch, funeral home in Naperville. I thanked her, ended the call, sat down on my couch because my legs stopped working. Robert Hayes was dead, my father, the man who'd chosen Tyler over me, who'd asked me to forgive the unforgivable, who'd watched me walk away and never picked up the phone to call me back. I didn't expect to feel anything, but grief hit me anyway. Not for the father he was, but for the father he could have been. I called Emily. I have to go back to Illinois, I said. My dad died. I'm coming with you, she said immediately. You don't have to. I'm coming with you. Thursday afternoon, Naperville, Illinois. 2.5 years since I'd left. The funeral home looked exactly the same. Dark wood paneling, thick carpet that absorbed sound, that cloying mixture of flowers and air freshener that every funeral home smells like. I walked in holding Emily's hand. Needed the anchor. Tyler and Jessica stood near the casket with my mother. Tyler saw me first. His face went through shock, then anger, then something harder to read. Jessica saw me, then saw Emily, and something crossed her face. Recognition, understanding, maybe regret. My mother approached. Patricia Hayes, 68 years old, dressed in black, her face arranged in that careful neutral expression she'd perfected over decades of being a Hayes. Christopher, she said, cold, formal. You came. He was still my father. You have a funny way of showing it, disappearing for 2 years. I didn't disappear, Mom. I left. There's a difference. Tyler stepped forward. Yeah, we could have used you around, bro. Running the business without you has been... Tyler. Patricia's voice cut him off. Not here. But the damage was done. Running the business without me. Confirmation of what I'd suspected. What I'd seen in those online reviews. Old Hayes Auto employees approached me throughout the service. Quiet words, sympathetic glances. Chris, man, we miss you. Place isn't the same. Tyler's trying, but it's not working. 2 locations closed. Sales are down 50% from when you left. I nodded, thanked them for coming, kept my face neutral. Emily stood beside me, steady and silent, just being present. The service was mercifully short. Dad wasn't religious, didn't want a long ceremony. Just some words from the funeral director, a few anecdotes from family friends, and it was over. The next day, Friday morning, the will reading. Richard Paulson's office, same place where Dad had done all his legal work for 30 years. Leather chairs, mahogany desk, walls lined with law books no one ever read anymore. Present, Patricia, Tyler, Jessica. Why was Jessica invited? And me. Richard looked uncomfortable. He'd known me since I was a kid, had watched me grow up in and around Hayes Auto. Now he had to navigate whatever mess Dad had left behind. The estate totals approximately $3.2 million, Richard began. He didn't look at anyone when he said it. Significantly less than previous projections due to the declining value of Hayes Auto Group. Tyler shifted in his seat. Jessica stared at her hands. Patricia, you receive $1 million outright, plus the house and all personal effects. Mom nodded. Expected. To my sons, Tyler and Christopher, Richard paused, looked at me briefly. Your father has divided the remaining assets equally, $1.1 million each. Tyler's head snapped up. What? That's not fair. I've been running the business for 2 years. Christopher left. He abandoned us. Tyler! Patricia's voice was sharp. However, Richard continued, raising his voice slightly. Tyler, your inheritance is contingent upon maintaining operation of Hayes Auto Group for a minimum of 5 years. If you sell, dissolve, or abandon the business during that time, your inheritance reverts to the estate and will be distributed according to secondary provisions. Tyler's face went red. He's tying me to that failing business for 5 years? Christopher, Richard said, turning to me, your inheritance has no conditions attached. Additionally, your father left you a sealed letter. He instructed me to give it to you privately. We stepped into a side office. Richard handed me an envelope, my name in Dad's handwriting. He changed this will 6 months ago, Richard said quietly. Cut Tyler's share significantly, added the business contingency. When I asked why, he said, I'm trying to be fair for once. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. The letter was 2 pages, handwritten. Christopher, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you probably hate me. You have every right to. I've known about Tyler and Jessica for 8 months before you caught them. Your mother knew too. We thought if we pushed you to forgive them, it would all blow over quietly. We were wrong. Watching you leave that Sunday dinner was the hardest thing I've ever witnessed. You walked away from everything, and I realized you walked away from nothing, because we'd given you nothing. Not respect, not trust, not the family you deserved. The business collapsed without you. Tyler can't run it. I tried to teach him, to make him be more like you. But you can't teach character. I'm leaving you half of what's left, not because you need it, but because it's yours by right. You built that business more than I ever did. I just hope someday you'll forgive an old man who chose wrong. If you found happiness, don't come back here. Don't try to save us. We made our bed. I'm proud of you, son. I should have said it more. Dad. My hands were shaking, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't stop them. Have you ever gotten the apology you needed years too late? Reading my dad's letter, it didn't fix everything, but it helped me understand. Sometimes people realize their mistakes when there's no time left to fix them. Richard gave me a moment. When I finally composed myself, we walked back into the main office. Tyler was arguing with Patricia in hushed, urgent tones. They stopped when I entered. We're done here, I said to Richard. Send me the paperwork. I'll sign whatever needs signing. I walked out. Emily followed. We made it to the parking lot before Tyler caught up. You've got some nerve, he said, showing up and taking Dad's money after abandoning us. I turned, looked at my brother, really looked at him for the first time in years. Tyler, I didn't even know he was sick. You could have called me. Why? So you could play the good son? You walked away, remember? Jessica appeared behind him. She looked tired, worn. The expensive clothes couldn't hide it. Chris, can we talk? Her voice was small. No, I said. We can't. Please, I made a mistake. Tyler and I, it didn't work out. We're not even together anymore. That surprised me, but not much. The business is failing, Jessica continued. We need someone who knows how to run it. I thought maybe you thought maybe I'd come back and save you? I finished. She looked at Emily, then back to me. I thought maybe you still cared. I did care, Jessica. That's why it hurt so much. But I don't care anymore. I moved on. I'm happy now. I gestured to Emily. That's my future. You're my past. Maybe you've been tempted to go back and prove everyone wrong. I could have, but I realized I didn't need them to see my success. I just needed to live it. We drove back to Nashville that night, 12 hours straight, Emily taking turns at the wheel when I got too tired. We didn't talk much, just drove, stopping for gas and bad coffee and bathroom breaks. A week later, Richard called. Christopher, there's a complication. As part of the estate, you technically have right of first refusal on Hayes Auto Group if Tyler decides to sell. He's approached me about selling the business. He's desperate, drowning. The contingency on his inheritance means he can't just walk away, but he wants out. How much does he want? He's offering to sell you the entire operation for $500,000. It's worth maybe $2 million in assets, but given the current state, $500 is probably fair. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to buy it, not for revenge, but for legacy, for the employees who'd stuck around, for my own closure. Tell Tyler I'll buy it for $750,000, I said, fair market value. But on these conditions, he exits completely, my mother has no involvement, and I install a CEO to run it. I'm not moving back. Tyler accepted within a day. He was that desperate. 3 months later, Hayes Auto Group had a new general manager, Marcus's cousin, who'd run dealerships in Atlanta for 15 years. The 2 closed locations stayed closed. The remaining 3 locations stabilized. Sales started climbing again, slowly. I owned it, but I didn't run it. Just reviewed quarterly reports, approved major decisions remotely. It was an investment property, nothing more. Tyler moved to Arizona, lives with an aunt out there, we don't talk. Jessica divorced Tyler after 6 months. Last I heard, she's working retail in Naperville, filed bankruptcy last year. Patricia still lives in the big house, alone. We exchange Christmas cards. That's the extent of our relationship. I thought going back to Illinois would rip open all the old wounds. Instead, it stitched them closed for good. Because when I drove away that time, I wasn't running anymore. I was choosing my life, choosing my family, choosing me. 2 years later, 4 years after I left Illinois, I'm standing on my back porch on a Saturday morning, watching Jackson throw a tennis ball for our dog. We'd adopted Biscuit from a rescue 6 months after Emily and I got married. Scruffy mutt, part terrier, part something else no one could identify. Jackson named him. Kid logic, he's the color of a biscuit. It's late summer in Franklin, Tennessee. The air is thick with humidity, cicadas screaming in the trees. Jackson's 11 now, lanky, all elbows and knees, hair too long because he keeps forgetting to get it cut. Biscuit's chasing that tennis ball like his life depends on it, tongue-lolling, pure joy. Emily's inside making breakfast, our Saturday ritual. She's 5 months pregnant. We're having a girl, Grace. My choice for the name, because that's what this life has been, I told Emily. Grace. Sync Point Operations now has 127 clients across 6 states. Revenue's pushing $100,000 a month. I've hired 3 full-time employees, 2 developers, and a customer success manager. It's not a unicorn startup. It's not going to make me a billionaire, but it's sustainable, it's profitable, and I actually give a damn about what we build. Hayes Auto sends me quarterly reports. The business stabilized, not spectacular, but solid. Profits up 12% year over year. Employee retention at 85%. I'll probably sell it in a few years, take the cash, reinvest it somewhere else. It doesn't define me anymore. Ray and Donna are at our dinner table most Sundays. Ray still tells terrible hardware jokes. Donna still sneaks biscuit scraps under the table when she thinks no one's looking. They're grandparent figures to Jackson. We'll be to Grace, the family we chose. Marcus and Lisa come over for game nights. We play Cards Against Humanity, drink wine, laugh at jokes that aren't that funny. Normal friend stuff, the kind of friendships that aren't transactional, that don't require anything except showing up and being real. Chris, Emily calls from the kitchen. Breakfast is ready. Jackson comes running in, Biscuit at his heels. The dog's not supposed to be inside, but Jackson smuggles him in anyway, and I pretend not to notice. Can I have extra bacon? Jackson asks. May I have extra bacon? Emily corrects. May I? Yes. We sit down, Emily, Jackson, me, and our dog, who's definitely not supposed to be at the table. Grace kicking inside Emily's belly, this chaotic, imperfect, beautiful life. Dad, Jackson says. He's been calling me Dad for about a year now. You think the baby will like Minecraft? I laugh. I think you'll make sure she does. Cool, he grins. Can you teach her to drive when she's old enough? Mom's a terrible driver. I heard that, Emily says, swatting at him with a dish towel. Later that night, after Jackson's asleep and Biscuit snoring on his dog bed, Emily and I sit on the back porch. She's got her hand on her belly, and I can feel Grace kicking under my palm. You ever think about what would have happened if you'd stayed in Illinois? Emily asks. Sometimes, I say. Mostly I think about what I would have missed if I had. I look at her. At this woman who taught me to trust again. At Jackson's bedroom, light still on because he's reading under the covers with a flashlight. At Biscuit doing that dog dream running thing where his legs twitch. At this house that's not fancy, but is ours. At this life that isn't perfect, but is real. This is what I would have missed. My phone buzzes. Text from Tyler. Hey man, you in town anytime soon? Would be good to catch up. I don't respond. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I won't. But it doesn't matter. He's not my problem anymore. I don't carry that weight. I deleted the text, kissed Emily goodnight, checked on Jackson. He was asleep with his book on his chest. I marked his page and turned off his light, scratched Biscuit's ears, went to bed in my own house, in my own life, with my own family. 4 years ago, I thought my life was over. I thought losing everything meant I'd lost everything. But here's what I learned. I didn't lose everything. I lost the wrong things. And losing the wrong things made room for the right things. The family that betrayed me taught me what family shouldn't be, so I could recognize what it should be when I found it. The business I built and lost taught me that your work doesn't define you. How you treat people does. The wife who cheated taught me what real love looks like when I found Emily. If you're going through hell right now, betrayed, lost, broken, I can't promise it'll be easy. But I can promise this. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the beginning of the best thing. You just can't see it yet. I couldn't either, but trust me, on the other side of that pain, there's a life waiting that you can't even imagine yet. A life you'll actually want to live. A life where you wake up grateful instead of grieving. It'll be worth every single step it took to get there. I promise.